Good afternoon. It's I won't try to delay your lunchtime too much with Chris. We just wrapped up 2.5 weeks of draft meetings with the scouts and the coaches, of course, with their input. We're going to continue to study the players, and we'll be ready to go a week from today. So let the games begin.
Dan Duggan, The Athletic.
Hey, guys, I got a question for each of you. Dave, you've obviously went through one draft process now with Joe. Just curious, how involved is he in the evaluation process, and what has he brought just to the entire draft process?
Well, Dan, he's very involved. He was very involved last year. I have this crazy idea that we should collaborate and this crazy idea we should bring in players that fit coaches' schemes. So he's, obviously very involved. This year obviously was different because you're touching each other. You're in the same spot, and it's really helpful. And the best part is the direction and him and his staff explaining the type of player they're looking for. Really and truly, at the end of the day, the biggest direction is with the linebackers. Very frankly, offensive players are linemen, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, back end guys, front end. It's all the same. It's really the linebacker fit and the versatility we're looking for at certain with certain players. So you'd like to have a talented two-way go guy, a guy that can do a couple things. So you take away, you turn around and you take a look at what Julian Love has developed into, where he's a corner, he's a safety, he's here, he's there, and it gives you, what it does is, Dan, is it gives you the coordinator a lot of flexibility. So that's where that's at. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then, good.
Chris, what's like the biggest, well, I'm sure there's a few, but like some of the biggest changes you've had to make through even going back to the end of the last draft process? And is there anything that you found actually beneficial that you might stick with going forward when we get, back to quote unquote normal?
Through the draft process, obviously the hardest part was not being on the road, being on campus with the players. The Zoom, getting the Zoom background went well. The colleges were great about, offering those to us so we can gather, but it was different. You're in a room with 32, other clubs. And so you didn't get maybe the intimate information you'd get being on campus. I hope we don't do that next fall. I hope we're back on campus again. I think something that we'll take from it, maybe is the ability to, get with our scouts, use the Zoom piece, like more meet throughout the fall, maybe some more as a group. But other than that, I think, getting back to normal business will benefit us.
Thanks, guys.
Tom Rock, Newsday.
I have one for each of you too. Chris, I'd like just to follow up on that. What were some of the challenges of trying to evaluate players who weren't on the field, guys who either opted out or their schools didn't play a full slate of games? How did you go into that, and how did you come out of that?
Well, with the opt-out guys specifically, we watched all their film, that they did play in 19, and and going back, we went over it again as many times as possible, because that was it. That's all we had. And really it was sit back and wait and get them at their pro days. That was it. That was our opportunity. So we made it, point, myself, especially, like anyone that opted out, I try to get to that pro day to get my eyes on them. Some of these guys, you watch them, as they come up, who they are, but that was it. You really just had to sit and wait on these opt-out guys. You couldn't, the league, we weren't allowed to talk to them until you talk to everybody. And, you ask your sources and build your character piece, throughout the fall, like any other player.
Was that hard? Because some of these guys, they were teenagers the last time they played football.
Right.
That's a big development area, I'm guessing.
Right. Yeah. You got to do a lot of projecting, that's what this business is. But, you had the benefit of some showed up at the Senior Bowl. You got down there, you got to watch them work, see what kind of shape they were in. And again, yeah, it's hard. Some of these guys haven't had pads on 20 months when we're going to get them. And that can be part of the piece that we have to take into consideration.
And then for Dave, if I could, I guess, what's your take on Kyle Pitts? People talk about him as a unicorn and the best tight end that they've ever seen. What do you see from him?
He's a uniquely talented player, plain and simple. You can't characterize him as just a receiving tight end because he's got a lot. You watch him block; he's got a lot of blocking grit, and he's got some nice fundamentals down, and he's certainly big enough. So he's a different breed of cat now. He's very talented.
Ryan Dunleavy, New York Post.
Hey, Dave, I wanted to get your thoughts on what Tom just asked Chris about the opt-out guys. How do you view them? Are you more likely to, if it's a tie, to go with somebody who didn't opt out of last season because there's fresher tape? How do you view them? Is there anything you can compare it in your scouting career to all these guys, dozens of guys who didn't play last year?
No, I definitely, Ryan, there's nothing I can compare this to. You're almost with a handful of these guys. It's almost like the NBA one and done. They go to college for a year and now bang, they're in the NBA. So, you have to do it on a case by case basis. Listen, they made a decision to opt out. Who am I to judge? And you watch it. Things haven't changed. It's what you do between the white lines that give you your value as a player, and then obviously you're judging the character piece as well. But no, I don't have any preconceived notions. We've discussed with amongst each other, in the room, the reasons that a guy opted out. When I get on the Zoom calls, we're still doing it. We're still in the interview process with the players. So I've been doing two guys a night, and like tomorrow I'll do 6 guys in the afternoon. And we asked them specifically, tell me your story about the opt-out. What's your journey like? Are you glad you did it? You go through that process, Ryan. But again, it's hard because especially, Tom said it before. I mean, there are guys that haven't played, that were 19 years old the last time they played football. And, oh, by the way, this is going to be 20 months before it'll be 20 months between when the last time they had pads on. Okay. And you guys know how I kind of, talk about the underwear Olympics. On the field, the game is played in pads and it's played on a field. So, it's going to be interesting that some of the opt-out kids did a great job, showed up at their pro days and just, were outstanding. And there were a few of those opt-out guys that showed up and looking like me, so it's that wasn't real good for them, but that, so you do it on a case by case basis, Ryan. You look at the film and, you come up with it and you make a decision on them.
Pat Leonard, Daily News.
Hey guys, I have a couple. Chris, how many of these pro days were you able to have an in-person interview with a guy? Were some schools able to relax some of that? Were you able to actually talk face-to-face to guys at different schools?
No, we weren't. The league did not allow us to do that. So that was a big chunk of our character building piece that we didn't have this year. So we weren't allowed to meet with them in the pro day. So it was just there observing. And, we met with all these guys through Zooms beforehand. What we did was really leading up to the pro days. We kind of simulated what we would normally do at the combine, our formal interviews. We did that with the coaching staff and the personnel staff. We Zoomed them. So that's where that's where you really get the information, where I got to meet them. Another thing about the evaluations, injury data. I know there were some guys who didn't even get to Indianapolis, like Phillips from Miami. There's some Notre Dame guys. Are you still waiting on some injury data and evaluations on players, or do you have all of that at your disposal at this moment? Yeah, that part is done with. Ronnie Barnes and his staff has done a great job gathering that information. Is it as thorough? Probably, because you're not getting your hands on these guys. We had 300 plus guys normally go to a combine. We had about 150 this year. So you're looking at half the people you don't have, our doctors have their hands on. So you're relying on, we're all adapting to everything and during this pandemic. So you're relying on phone calls and getting that information. But Ronnie and his staff have done that. So we have medical grades on everybody going forward. Just one more, if you don't mind. Dave, are you trading up or trading back?
I'm going to involve you in the trade.
Sounds good. You get some good return there. What does the market look like for trades, though?
It's crazy. It's the quarterbacks are affecting it. Who knows? I don't think it's going to be any different than any other year in terms of trading, the opportunities to trade up and trade back. It's about value, that. And, you go into the draft with, you have an idea of who you'd like to take at that slot, what group of players. And then if there's someone sitting there, you have an opportunity to trade up, you trade up. If you have an opportunity, if you don't like what you're looking at and you feel the value is better at the, back end of that round, you trade back. So, I really don't think it's going to be that different, to answer your question. I really don't.
Thanks.
Patty Trainer, Giants Country.
Hi, guys. Thank you for doing this. I have a question for whoever wants to take this. I'm curious, how much do you factor into your decision when you set up your board contracts of your current veterans? And to use a specific example, looking at your offensive line, I think you have about 4 guys who are in contract years, and they may be re-signed, they may not be re-signed. So when you set up your board, do you take a look at that, factor that in and say, okay, look, we got to keep the pipeline refreshed as far as offensive line depth, or does that not matter when you ultimately put the board together?
Well, Patty, you're always looking at that kind of stuff. All right. So, just for example, if you got a guy that's going to be at, the contract up and because of the financial aspect, you may not, you may decide you're not going to do it. Sure. You may draft a guy, you may draft a player to fill the need that you're going to have. So you absolutely take that into consideration. You take the contracts. People always talk about, the draft guys obviously are cheaper labor, so to speak. So you're going to do that. I mean, that you make that part of that's part of the big picture look that you have to take when you're drafting. You have to look at, what you got, eventually who's going to go out the door, and how do you replenish? So that's really, hope that answers your question.
It does. And then if I could just follow up real quick, I know you've said in the past that you can never have too many good players at a specific position.
Right.
That said, can you have a situation or run into a situation where maybe you have too many players at one spot, let's say cornerback, and maybe not enough at another spot? And then how do you kind of weigh and balance, okay, do we take a cornerback here, or do we take a player at a position where maybe we're a little thin? Well,
it's one of those, you want to always take value. Okay, Patty. And I think really and truly, just because you take a guy, it's, there's no law against maybe flipping him or flipping the guy you already have on your roster. So it's an asset. So that you don't want to pass up good assets. You really don't. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Paul Schwartz, New York Post.
Hey guys, I got one for each of you. For Dave, Dave, you talked a lot about playmakers this offseason, playmakers for offense. You got a few of them in free agency. Kenny Golladay obviously was a big fish that you hooked. Is your receiver core done? Or I know, things are never done, I guess. When you look at the 2 Alabama receivers sitting there at 11, do you think your receiver core needs more, or did Golladay kind of satisfy that?
Well, no, you're always looking to upgrade every position, Paul. Doesn't make a difference, whether it's wide receiver, tackle, whatever. You're always looking to upgrade. So again, it's kind of the same. I'm going to give you the same response I just gave to Patty, frankly. It's about value, and it's, how you're building your team, what you're looking to do, and you can never have too many good players in one position.
The 2 Alabama receivers, they're not the biggest guys. Does that concern you, or if they can run by you, is it okay?
Well, you evaluate the film, okay, and their college film suggests that they're very good they're very good players. There are plenty of smaller guys that have been very successful in this league, just like there are plenty of huge guys that have been successful, and everyone in the middle.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, I have one more quickly for Chris. Chris, there are no, the edge rusher guys, the Chase Youngs or the Myles Garretts, they don't seem to be there in this draft. We say the first 2 or 3 picks, they're going to be gone. How do you look at the edge rush situation? And at 11, there's some of the warts on these guys. Can you kind of look over them, or is 11 a little too rich for these edge rushers this year?
I wouldn't say there's too rich for edge rushers any year. I mean, there's edge rushers are how you win. You win with guys who rush the passer. Where they are on the board, we'll see how it shakes out. A lot of factors to it, but I wouldn't say this, there aren't guys available.
Thank you. Kim Jones, NFL Network.
Hey guys, I appreciate your time for the second time this week, Dave in particular, and Chris, it's nice to see you. Dave, at number 11, do you envision getting a guy who will contribute right away?
It's an interesting question, Kim. Yes. The Cliff Note answer on it is yes. It's really hard to take a guy at 11 that you're betting on the potential. He's got all the PQs, it's just, what it comes down to? I look at it this way. So I'm a Celtics fan. Don't be angry, but I'm a Boston Celtics fan. So, a couple of years ago, the Celtics drafted Robert Williams out of Kentucky. He was a one and done guy and all kinds of potential. Well, now it's year 3 and he's finally starting to play to his abilities. Okay. In the NFL, I've got to be, Kim, I got to be really cognizant of the coaches. They're under the pressure to win all the time. Every Sunday is a referendum on their skills as coaches. And you got to be really careful when you start taking guys that high that have that much, you love the physical skills, the potential, but but how long is it going to take for it to show on the field? So that's kind of like the balance I have to get to. Does that answer your question?
That. And Dave, I would have been a Celtics fan if Len Bias had lived. So we actually would have had something in common, if not for that tragedy. Amen. So we can share that. Chris, Amen. I have one for you, if I may. When you talk about hard to get to know guys, it's inconceivable to me that you could not meet these guys face to face. That's a question and a topic probably for a different time in our lives. But are you confident you know these guys well enough?
Yeah, I am. And that's due to the work of our staff, the scouting staff, the coaching staff. I mean, we've done endless amount of Zooms. You're allowed 5, the league allowed us to do 5 Zooms, but, that's just a Zoom. We've talked to these guys all season, when we can, once we're allowed to, in scouting season. But it's every day. The scouts have been awesome. They've been working the phone lines just to get to know them, so we can sit there and we really truly know it. And then also our coaches doing it, but reaching out to the college coaches as well, going back, being thorough. So I've gotten to the point, Kim, where I feel like we do know these guys as we would in a normal year. Do we have the physical contact with them that we'd like? No. But so I'm trusting that our staff has really worked hard enough to get that where we feel like we know.
So Chris, real quick, these guys better than the media does, right?
I hope so.
Thank you.
Zach Rosenblatt, NJ.com.
Good one, Kim.
For Chris, kind of jumping off that a little bit, you obviously have a lot of coaching staff members on your staff that have ties to a lot of these big time college programs. I'm just curious, like how much, especially in a year like this, when, you have guys that opted out and all the uniqueness of this situation, like how valuable has that been to kind of get insight from someone like Sean Spencer on Penn State or Jeremy Pruitt on Tennessee, like stuff like that?
Very helpful.
Very helpful. Very helpful,
Zach. It's and they've known these guys, they've touched these guys, which is, which we unfortunately haven't been able to do and as much. So it's quite helpful.
Yeah, it provides because we go back, some of these guys recruited, they may not have gone to, a certain college, but they recruited them. So they give us another look, another view of, say, when they were in high school during the recruiting process. But again, the scouts also can work the coaches from another angle. So you get all different opinions, and we finally get to a group decision.
Hey guys, how you doing? I got one for each of you. Dave, I'm just curious. There's supposed to be, the projection a lot of people are making them, even you're probably making them inside your own, war room. Is that there's going to be a bunch of quarterbacks that go early in this draft. What does that mean for you guys of the kind of player that you expect to get at pick 11?
Well, the more quarterbacks that go, the more players it pushes to us, Jordan. And it's obviously helpful. I mean, I'd like to see, frankly, I'd like to see 10 quarterbacks go in front of us, but basically the more quarterbacks that go, the better it is for us.
Have you seen your pick be potentially more valuable at 11 than it would in a normal year in regards to people calling you and trading and that kind of stuff?
It could possibly.
As a result?
It's possible. It's possible. Yes.
And maybe, I guess it's for both of you. I'm just curious in a general sense, what do you think of that edge rusher group as a whole?
I think it's a good group, Jordan. I do. It's, there's a good group. There's a bunch of them. There's different ones, different types, which we like. There's ones that fit our system. So I think it's a good group. I think, it's obviously an important position that we look to fill every year, not this year over any other year. So we're going through it, and we're going to hopefully, if we decide to address that, if the one's there at a certain time and he fits what we do, we take him.
We'll take two more. Art Stapleton, Tom Canavan. Art Stapleton, the record.
Hey guys, how you doing? Going back a little bit to the opt-out question, but also just how difficult it is, the challenges you guys have faced in the evaluation this year. Is it position specific? Do you feel more comfortable or confident that you can get a better read on an opt-out at a different position when you compare an offensive lineman versus a wide receiver or a linebacker? Does that factor in as well for you guys? Do you have to treat it almost like a player by player, position by position thing, or is it really a broad stroke?
I think it's a broad stroke. I really do. I don't think that, listen, the wide receiver opts out, he can get a jugs machine. Offensive lineman opts out, I'm not so sure. It's different. But I think it's a broad. It's the broader question for me is what did he do? And for us right now, what kind of a college career did he have? And the next piece is what did he do while he had things were going on? He wasn't playing. And then what does he do with his pro day? So you've got kind of three pieces to it. And, it's a broad, it's really a broader question. I don't think that it's necessarily position specific.
Thank you.
Tom Canavan, AP.
Hey, Dave, does having only 6 picks, is that simply a fact of life, or did you address that in free agency, or does it put more pressure on you in the draft, or what?
No, I'm very comfortable with the 6 picks. We don't have the 5th rounder. We got this guy, Leo Williams, instead. And the 7th rounder was Ike Yidam, who's on our roster, and Akana. So that's where they went. We moved Marcus Golden to get an extra 6th. I'm fine with the number of picks we have in this draft going in. You don't know what's going to happen. So I'm fine with the 6, it's okay with me.
Would you be influenced to make a deal to get more?
Again, it depends upon the deal. Tom.
Last one here, Dan Graziano, ESPN.
Dave, something that gets attention around this time of year is your history of not trading down. Your predecessor in this job never did it. What do you think the reason is for that, either from your standpoint or the organization's?
Dan, you guys don't believe me. Meanwhile, Jeremiah had a great line. NASCAR will have right turns before DG trades back. I think it's a hell of a line. I had a good laugh. I've tried in the past. I've tried to trade back, but it's going to be value. I'm not getting fleeced. I refuse to do it. And if somebody wants to make a bad trade back, God bless them. But we've had opportunities. I've tried, and you have to understand the other piece of this, Dan, is sometimes you have a trade and the guy that the team is trading up for gets picked in front of you. We've had that happen to us. We got to trade, and the so-and-so selects, no trade, Dave, goodbye. And they hang the phone up on me. So that happens too. I mean, it's really, it's like, it's almost becoming urban myth. I've tried, I really have.
How unusual is it, a circumstance where you have 3 division teams drafting right in a row like this? And how does that affect either the trade landscape or the need for subterfuge?
Well, it's, it is what it is. We're drafting, we're all drafting around each other, and we're probably not going to trade with each other, but, we're all drafting around, and, I worry about us. My concern is the New York Football Giants. That's what I'm concerned about. I talk to the guys all the time, and gal, I talk to everybody all the time. You construct your team to beat the best team you are going to play. That's the goal. That's what we're trying to do here. And if we do that, we'll be fine.